Hi, so these are some thoughts following on from yesterday's video, and it's on the theme of was Lucy Letby a scapegoat, or was this a backup plan from really quite early on? So I'm going to hypothesize, and this is a little bit of a what if, and a part of it is because this is a case where so much information is being withheld from us, from everybody, by practically everybody. So, you know, in most cases, someone, you know, can talk about their side of things at some point. You know, even if you've got a criminal who is never going to give information and never going to fess up. And no, I'm absolutely not saying Lucy Letby is a criminal, but I'm just talking about that situation. But then, you know, the victims would talk, you know, eventually the police would talk, you know, other people involved in the case would talk, tell their side of the story. This case, this is really quite unusual in how much is being withheld. Now, Lucy Letby can't talk except to her lawyer because she's got quite a lot of restrictions as part of her conditions in prison about what she can actually talk about. So she's not allowed to talk about nursing, she's not allowed to talk about children. So she can't actually talk about what happened to her, you know, in hospital, because that'd be talking about nursing and about children. So the only person she can talk to is her lawyer. Obviously, he's bound by confidentiality. The hospital, I mean, people in the hospital, we know for a fact that people have been, like nurses, have been leaned on to not talk. The medical staff, the consultants, the doctors, we know that they're not talking, and when they do, they're giving out a lot of misleading information. And the police aren't really talking. Well, actually they are. They're the only ones talking at all. And I don't know even there, you know, if stuff is being held back. And I think we all suspect that may be the case. So there's so many unknowns in this case. So my what if here is following on from the idea that that the hospital was, or the neonatal department that had been set up was already struggling, and the Lucy Letby, you know, ended up being part of a distraction plan. Because let's imagine, say, Lucy Letby had not been in any trouble. Okay, what would have happened? Let me say this big word, the Pseudomonas aeruginosa would have come to light, and the ward would have been shut down. Parents, it appeared that there were at least one set of parents from 2014, I think, that would have sued because their baby very sadly died. And obviously because you know, babies were, there was this spike in mortality rates, people would have been suing. So obviously that would have been terrible publicity, but the consequence of having the ward shut down or people suing that would have stopped, you know, funding the income for that particular department and all its staff. So that is a consideration. Now, like I say, there's so many what ifs or unknowns. We don't know. So I am just literally hypothesizing. Well, imagine if, what if, what if, what if. So, okay, let's say you know, let's say you are psychopathic enough to say, right, let's have a distraction. Let's blame a nurse. So you pick a nurse. You're going to blame this nurse for all the deaths. Now, let's say you pick on fairly average ugly Betty with, I don't know, some weird facial tics, I don't know, and not, you know, she's grumpy and, you know, well, that's all right. It's a distraction. It is a distraction, but, you know, once you've dealt with ugly Betty and maybe persuaded her to leave, or, you know, say you just have suspicions and you persuade her to leave, you've still got a problem. And people forget ugly Betty because she's unremarkable, and, you know, even if it did go to trial, you know, you could just look at her face in the paper and, well, she looks like a murderer, no surprises. And you know, as unfair as it is, people forget people who look unremarkable. So you've still got your same difficulty, which is your ward's failing. And okay, you've gone down that route. Now you can't put two nurses away, okay? So let's say you have someone pretty, because you remember pretty people, okay? It makes more of an impact. And the thing about Lucy Letby is she was the poster girl for the ward, because, yeah, I mean, she was in the papers. Obviously, the images, the first images of her, she's in the paper, you know, showing off, you know, the new ward or the success of the ward, basically. So she's pretty, she's a poster girl, she's at that point an outstanding nurse, and she's, you know, a shining example of, you know, a good nurse, a friendly nurse, and she has a little bit of seniority. All right, she's not a senior nurse, but she's like the most qualified nurse for her rank. So she is the furthest away from what you would imagine like the serial baby murderer would be. So that makes an impact. People are going to remember that, because first you remember a pretty face, and then, you know, there's that picture of her holding up the award. That is pretty memorable too. So all of these things that are basically, you know, dissonant or completely incongruent with, you know, what a murderer would look like, or be like, that is going to create more of a distraction than poor old ugly Betty. Now, and also, no, I'll come to that later. So she was a poster girl before all of this happened, and I wonder who decided she was going to be that poster girl. You know, who decided her picture was going to be in the papers. So, you know, which came first, I guess, the chicken or the egg? So did someone decide this is going to be our poster girl? Conversely, did someone, you know, perhaps say, oh, that one sticks out because she was our poster girl? So, and again, this is just complete hypothesis. Now, Lucy Letby had a good relationship with the people who her main accusers, and it was like a real shock to her when she found out that they thought that she was guilty of this. So this comes into play because this is where, I mean, she did fight back, but also there was a bit of time when she didn't, because she was absolutely blindsided to find this out. And Karen Rees, I did actually manage to see the documentary. Karen Rees was talking about that time, and she was saying, you know, about how Lucy didn't say anything because she was just so gobsmacked. And it appears like Karen Rees didn't actually swing into action because she was also gobsmacked. So, you know, neither of them had words. So they were both, I won't say paralysed in the headlights, but they were both completely blindsided for a while with that. So that was really my thoughts. And, you know, I'm wondering how early someone would start a ball like that rolling, because, you know, in the world of business, in any organisation, sometimes something like that will happen. And managers, people at the top, can be really quite psychopathic and ruthless, and forward planning, premeditating about how they want to achieve a certain result, how they will you know, do what's expedient to keep the status quo going. So yeah, that was just my little thought for the day. Yeah, so please like, subscribe, and hope to see you in the next video.